A question I get asked a decent amount is how I set up my lineups when it comes to War Thunder. And generally in ground I run 5 vehicles and that's it. A lot of people run many more, that is completely fine, but see this as kind of a core to your overall lineup. If you like running more crews than 5, then that's fine. Use this as a core for those more crews and then you can add stuff on top of it. The only limitations of running a 5-man setup is sometimes you will run out of vehicles and there will be certain situations where you will not have access to all of the tools that you need. But in the vast majority of times, these lineups have helped me out going through these stages. Now, basically, the way that I set up the lineup is pretty simple, and the reason why I use 5 is because I know for a fact that 5 are available to every single player when it comes to the game. So, by doing that, I can basically get a little bit closer to what the average player is doing instead of just running a ridiculous amount of crews with crazy crew skills. The other thing is, since I don't gold my crew skills, one of the things that I have to do is grind them out, and the less crews in order to grind out the crew skills on, the easier it is over time. Even after nearly 10 years of playing War Thunder, I still don't have a fully maxed out ground crew in any of the nations, even after grinding out whole tech trees. I think my closest one is Germany at 135, and I have fully researched the whole tech tree. So, the way that I set up my 5 crews is simple. You have 3 ground vehicles and 2 air vehicles. These air vehicles, generally what you have is 1 CAS aircraft, a vehicle which is designed with attacking ground units at some point, and then you also have an air superiority aircraft. The reason to run a CAS aircraft, which also is pretty good at the whole air superiority thing, something like a P-51, a P-47, even something like a Bf-109 can work in this role. A Typhoon, for example, as well, is fantastic in this role, is a really nice vehicle to have in your lineup because you can destroy ground targets and also marshal the air. But a lot of nations don't have options where they have vehicles which are really good at attacking ground and also attacking air, which is why I also have an air superiority fighter in the game. Sometimes you need options to be able to kill the ground, or you need options to kill the air. It's as simple as that, and that's what those 2 vehicles offer you. At the same time, when it comes to the ground units, I generally go with 2 MBTs and then 1 specialist vehicle. So in the form of MBTs, these can mean heavy tanks or medium tanks, depending on what BRs that you're at. Can even mean light tanks, depending on which vehicles you are seeing. Basically, what you are looking for in those 2 slots is meta vehicles or something close to meta vehicles. Something which offers you a decent platform to be able to push from. That's why I use either medium tanks or heavy tanks at low BRs, or even some lighter tanks at high BRs. Ones which I know will do functionally well. The third area, or the third point when it comes to the 3 ground vehicles, should be reserved for a auxiliary vehicle. Now, it can be there for another meta vehicle, but a lot of nations don't have access to 3 MBTs at the same BR, because you want everything to either be at the same BR or at least be 0.3 away from each other if you are able to, because you don't want to put yourself at a disadvantage when taking things into a battle, and therefore having an auxiliary vehicle is the way to go. This auxiliary vehicle can be an AA, it can also be a AT, some kind of TD. Generally it's not a TD though, because most of them are pretty bad in the game compared to their standard medium tank counterparts, or it can be a light tank if a light tank has not filled that role in the other part of the 2 other vehicles. So that's the generic setup. It works incredibly well. It's worked for me for an incredibly long time and will continue to work well. The only thing that it lacks, as I said, is longevity sometimes, especially if you get annihilated in 2 vehicles very, very quickly. But if you are good enough to be able to get into a plane, or if you're good enough to be able to get a few kills under your belt or trade evenly, then you should be completely fine with a lineup like this. I'd just like to thank Nicholas Richardson, Elove Goat, Pyman675, Winter Scientist, Merciless Reaper, Jerry Prevolt, Megadino King, Orange Tail, Teddy, John Ryman, Universe, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Moxie, B. Young, Uncle Bean, Sem Arslan, Derek R., Bareen, Lafouche, and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.